house for the men. We had residents or people who are, they have their schooling and they've had their internship and now they're continuing their education. A resident came in the house one day and he said, Mr. Paul, he says, you're the talk of the whole. Oncology is a big word for cancer. It happened to be the radiation oncology department. He says, you're the talk of the whole oncology department. And I looked at him, I said, what am I doing wrong? He says, nothing. By now, when they radiate your face, they blow out these saliva glands. Your mouths are always wet. And when you don't have all the saliva, then the saliva gets thick and it gets cakey. He says, by now you should have all this white crusty. And I didn't. And when he said that, I remember looking at him and I literally said, well, I thought I came here to get better, not to get worse. And he starts laughing. He says, see, that's what they say over there. You come in there like, and I thought, well, I'm not here to die. I mean, if you die, you die, but I'm not here to die. In fact, after week 5, I had lost so much weight. My radiation doctor, little Israeli guy, Avraham Eisbrook, he said, what do you eat? And I said, nothing. You know what a canker sore is? My whole mouth was one big canker sore. Water hurt drinking it, burned going down. He said, what do you eat? And I said, nothing. I said, my whole mouth is a canker sore. Thank you very much. You know, this is your work, not mine. And he looked at me and says, you lose 1 more pound, I'm taking you off the protocol, which means they're going to stop the treatment and I'm going to be at risk. And I remember looking at him. I said, whatever you got to do, doc. I said, are you guaranteeing me if you put a feeding tube in me that I'm never going to have cancer again? He says, no. I said, do what you got to do, doc. And he just kind of looked at me like, how can you talk to a doctor like that, you know? So that was Friday, so I went home and I have athletes in here. I bought 2 10-pound ankle weights. And because I knew I wasn't going to eat. If you've never eaten, you go 30 seconds without eating, and after a couple of weeks, your body doesn't want to eat. You get through 30 seconds, you're cool for the rest of the day. No hunger. So anyway, so I go, and then I always had to go in for treatment. Monday they did my weigh-in. So, and it's wintertime, so I can't wear my jacket, obviously. That's going to affect the scale, but I was allowed to put my sweater on, and, you know, at this point, I could just pull my pants off and on. I didn't have to worry about belts or nothing, so I would put the 10 pounds on. I'd lift them up, and I went in there, and I got on a scale, and a week later, it looks like it looks like I've only lost half a pound. Now, I've lost 9.5 pounds in week 6. And he looks at the scale, and he looks at me, and I have no idea what I physically look like. That was another 2 weeks down the road. But I remember looking at the scale, and it looked like I gained half a pound, and he looked at the scale, and he looked at me, and he looked at the scale, and he looked at me, and I looked at him. He said, you can go. So another week now, I put on 20 pounds of ankle weights and get on the scale, and now it looks like I lost half a pound. So the last 2 weeks, I've lost 20.5 pounds in the last 2 weeks. This is after losing, I lost 54 pounds total, so I get on the scale, and I look at it. Damn scale. And he looks at the scale, and he looks at me, and he looks at the scale, and he looks at me, and I look at him. He says, okay. He says, go get your last 2 treatments, and you're done. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Right? I told you I wasn't going to die. So much for what you know and what you don't know, right? In fact, it was so weird when I got home, I went to the bookstore, and there's a guy there named Todd Ortlieb. I've known him for 20 years. And I went up to him behind him, I said, hey Todd, how you doing? I lost 54, I'm down to 144. Right now I'm about 183, 144. I said, hey Todd, how you doing? He turns around, he looks at me, and he looks at me, and then he looks at me really close. He goes, boy, your voice is familiar, but I can't place your face. And I thought nothing about him. I thought, what do I look like? So I went home right away, and I looked at myself in the mirror, and I thought, who are you? Yes?
Did it feel like you didn't lose any weight? Like, did it feel like you looked the same to yourself?
No, I knew that was not me in the mirror. No, I knew I was hurting. I was hurting.
Like I don't know if that was the same effect, but there's like a lot of people who lose a ton of weight and still look at themselves as like the same they were.
No, I never. No, that's a great question. When you can just slip your pants off and on like that without any help, you know that you're really loose. In fact, it was really funny. Someone had given me these expensive suits that their brother had bought, like $500 suits, $600 suits, and then he put on weight, so they didn't fit. So they said, "You want these suits?" And I said, "Yeah, that's before I go into treatment." So I lose 54 pounds. And I got these really nice looking suits. I mean, nice suits, not designer suits like we got now, but they were nice suits. So I go into the local guy who he makes custom suits. I forget his name now, I knew him then. I walk in, he looks at me, and I said, "You probably don't recognize me." Told him who I am. "Oh, wow. What happened to you?" And I held up the suits, and I said, "Can you take 54 pounds off these suits?" And he laughs. He says, "Yeah, but you're not going to have any pockets in the pants." And I said, "Well, I don't have anything back there anyway. You can just..."
Because, for me, I lost 30 pounds, so I still go into
You didn't see it.
And I still go into the store and I pick out pants that would have fit me when I was, 30 pounds bigger, and I was like, and I put them on and I'm like, what was I thinking? This is a little waste.
Yeah, look at these, wow.
But in my head, I'm still
yeah.
The same.
Yeah, no, I followed the question. Other things were going on at that point in my life that made me kind of focus differently, but go ahead.
I think image of oneself in that stress situation, you're really not concentrating on that. And then reality kind of sets in at the end of it once you've gone through all of that.
Never did sit in, brother.
No, I mean, I'm talking about in regards to, that, you're not going to lose this battle, is what I'm saying. You're not going to lose this fight.
Yeah.
I joke around with my kids and say, I got 2 good fights left in me, don't make me waste one. And my oldest daughter understands what I mean. My other kids not so much, but, she just smiles at me and laughs. Cancer runs in my family. It's claimed almost all of my family. I've got one living relative left, and she's in her 70s.
Don't join the party. Don't join the party. So let's go over his arguments real quick. Utilitarian argument: action and social policy should be judged right or wrong exclusively according to whether they cause happiness or misery, and when judged by this standard, euthanasia turns out to be morally acceptable. Again, we come back to the argument that we had originally with utilitarianism. How do you calculate happiness and misery? Any action or social policy is morally right if it serves to increase the amount of happiness in the world or decrease the amount of misery. Conversely, an action or social policy is morally wrong, serves to decrease happiness or increase misery. The policy of killing at their own request hopelessly ill patients who are suffering a great pain would decrease the amount of misery in their life. I don't know if you can say in the world, because other people suffer along with people when they lose loved ones that they care about. And how do you measure that loss? We don't know. But this illuminates the related difficulties. Suppose a person is leading a miserable life full of more unhappiness than happiness, but does not want to die. This goes back to the social policy argument. So you have to deal with that. Doing what's in everybody's best interest. In the case of voluntary euthanasia, we're now considering great suffering is eliminated, and since the patient requested, there's no question of violating the individual rights. That's correct. That's their autonomy. I believe the following argument is sound and proves that active euthanasia can be justified. If the action promotes the best interest of everyone concerned and violates no one's rights, then the action is morally acceptable. Therefore, again, he now puts together possibilities of people not agreeing, and that could well override or violate the right of the person who wants voluntary active euthanasia. Active euthanasia does promote the best interest of everyone concerned and violates no one's right. Is this true when it comes to family members? Why should the wishes of the family even be included? I can make an argument for that. Other people make an argument against it. Doesn't this really assume just a single interest of the affected party? For example, my throat cancer. So they go through chemo, they go through radiation, and now they're going to do surgery. What they really want to do, again, I might repeat myself, they want to split my face open and take the base of my tongue, my epiglottis, your voice box, you got 2 vocal cords, and they want to take both of these neck muscles out. Your lymphatic system runs from your brain to your groin. It's called the sewer system in your body. Anything can travel through it. And so if it moved from here to here, I could still have buddies over here sleeping, waiting to wake up 22 years later. So they wanted to take all of this out. You have 150 microscopic lymph glands in your neck, and you could have little buddies in there. All you need is one cell that's going to go ballistic. So they wanted to do all of this, and I told my doctor, no. I invoke Cruzan. I have rights. I'm not going to give you permission to do that. And I said, in the middle of surgery, if you have any question, you need to wake me up. And he looked at me kind of weird, and I said, trust me, if you do it without waking me up, you are really going to have an angry patient on your hands, and I know the law's on my side. And I told him about Cruzan. So they knocked me out. 45 minutes into surgery, the doctor comes out. Now I have my wife there. You need to learn this, people. It says in the face of 2 or 3 witnesses, everything is confirmed. So my wife is there, and my best friend and his wife are there, and everybody knows that I have said, no, I call this my plumbing. Nobody takes my plumbing. So the doctor comes out and he says, we need someone to make a decision. Of course, I can't raise my hand, I'm out. He said he has 7 surgeons, and 4 of them say if we take all this plumbing, we guarantee he'll never have this cancer come back. Because once your immune system's compromised, you might get it someplace else, some other kind. And he looks at my wife at the time and he says, what do you want us to do? And she says, I don't know what to decide. If I make the wrong decision, you'll never talk to me again. So immediately my friend pipes up and says, he told you couldn't touch his plumbing. And then my wife's name was Barbara. He says, Barbara, you know that's what he said. And so Barbara said, don't, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
That's okay.
But if they would have taken it, you literally couldn't have to talk, right?
Oh, yeah, no, I'd had, you know, that little mic they put here with the microphone. Hello, people, how are you? And you have to learn how to breathe, because that then makes the breath so that it can resonate in the microphone, yeah.
It's kind of funny that she says you'd never talk to her again if she made the wrong decision.
Yeah, when I heard that, we had a discussion how that was not funny, but it was a comment that didn't surprise me. So they left my plumbing. But doesn't this really assume that the only interest that's really involved is a person going through the treatment? That's a hard question, people. It's not black and white. When it's happening to you, of course, you have personal preference. When it's happening to someone you love and you're married to or you're devoted to, family, sibling, whatever, those are different values, and they're just as valid. They come into play just as well, especially if you're given a choice to voice your opinion and have that opinion affect the outcome. Hang on, Jada, go ahead.
I think you can't misconstrue. If you try to include the effects of family members, then in a way you're calling it suicide. Because that's what suicide is. It's affecting the person's, the individual's interest. Well, my life sucks, so I'm going to end it. And they're not thinking about all the people they're going to affect. That's suicide. But if it's euthanasia, to assist it, then it's, in my opinion, I would imagine that decision, based on the definition, all the family members are aware, and they all are in agreement. So I don't think you consider family members because they've already made a decision together.
So are you saying if one family member doesn't agree, then the patient that wants voluntary active euthanasia shouldn't be allowed to have? I just want to clarify so I know what you're saying. It's okay if you do. There's people who make that argument.
If you go by the definition, then everyone is aware that this patient wants that.
If you go by this definition, yeah, you're right. If you hold to that, you're right. And that's where his argument falls down, because he puts too many pieces in there that may not ever be in agreement. Go ahead.
Well, just to go off of what you just said, I'm just saying, although suicide usually, a lot of the family is not aware of it, or maybe they are aware that they have suicidal thoughts, but euthanasia is still that person's right alone. And maybe the family members don't know, maybe they don't agree, and they would still have that right for themselves.
I still think it's infringing on the person themselves' rights. It's my body. If I'm choosing to do this and I want to put myself out